There are a lot of ways to improve your pronunciation, but the more important question to ask is what your pronunciation goals are. Do you know what your pronunciation goals are? Why do you want to improve your pronunciation? I'll let you think about that for a moment. As you're thinking about your goals, ask yourself, how are you currently using English? And if you're not currently using English, then I'd like you to think about how you hope to be using English in the future. For example, maybe you want to live, work, or travel abroad to an English-speaking country like the US, for example, and you'd be using English in that kind of scenario. So in this lesson, we're addressing how to identify your pronunciation needs so that you know how to take action. Let's get to it. All right, I hope you took a couple of seconds to think about your pronunciation goals. Do you want to sound like a native English speaker? Do you feel the need to eliminate your accent completely? Is your goal generally to sound clear and intelligible but maintain your accent? Is it any of these? As you're doing goal setting, think about when you need to use English and how you need to use the language. For example, you might need to use it at work. And maybe you need to improve your speaking skills and listening comprehension, mainly to be able to interact with clients. But if your job consists predominantly of interacting via email, then you would probably like to improve your written communication and reading comprehension skills, and maybe pronunciation is not that much of a concern. So, do you see how, even though you might use English at work, depending on the nature of your job and how you communicate in English, your goal could be different. If you are on video conferencing calls and phone calls most of the day at work, then your pronunciation needs to be crystal clear. For example, if you work in a call center, you'd do well to improve your pronunciation so that your speech is very clear. Phone calls can be one of the most difficult modes of communication because there is no visual aid. In other words, we can't see a person's facial expressions or nonverbal communication. All we have is their voice. And if for some reason the phone signal or cellular connection is weak, then it can be extra difficult and challenging to both understand someone who is on the phone as well as to speak to them on the phone. Someone with a call center job would definitely need to prioritize excellent communication skills and pronunciation. So those are some work-related scenarios, but let's say that you're more interested in having a casual conversation in English. If this is your communication goal, then your speech can be more casual and relaxed. Your pronunciation goals can be mainly to achieve intelligibility so that you are understood, but you don't need to necessarily eliminate your accent entirely. And I personally am a firm believer in not obsessing over eliminating one's accent because you can communicate clearly and be understood even with an accent. And it's also proof that you know more than one language. And in my book, that's always a plus, as someone who loves speaking and learning different languages myself. Remember that whatever your goals are with speaking and pronunciation, that improvement does take time. You also need to have patience with yourself and with the process. And so be consistent with your daily practice because that's going to get you to your goals that much faster. Additionally, a lot of people think they need to have the motivation to want to improve. But don't wait until motivation shows up because sometimes it does not show up. Motivation is something that comes and goes. It's not something that we always have around. The better thing to have is consistency. That's what we can rely on. Be consistent with your training. Just like you're not going to get stronger from one gym session, you're not going to improve your pronunciation after one study session, right? So let's now talk about the steps that you can take to improving pronunciation. Step number 1, analysis. So this step is to analyze the way you use English or hope to use English and want to use English in the future, and for what purpose. For example, you use English at work, and you are mostly in video conference calls or interacting face-to-face with clients. Or you want to live in the US, and so you hope to be using English every day as you build a life there. Step number 2, goal setting. Determine your goals. Do you need to get really good on the phone and work on your telephone skills? Do you need to be good face-to-face? Do you want to be able to hold a conversation in English when chatting with friends? Think about what's your priority and what's most important to you, and then you can decide what pronunciation goal needs your immediate attention. Start with one goal and work on that, and then once you feel comfortable with that and it feels like you've achieved your goal, you can then move on to the next goal and then repeat the process. But don't overwhelm yourself by choosing 5 goals or 5 things to work on and then feeling really overwhelmed and then not wanting to work on anything, right? Just feeling stuck. Just work on one at a time and you're gonna see a huge improvement just from that. Number 3, scheduling. So it's super important to schedule time into your day-to-day for important things. For example, if you know that you want to be consistent with your workouts, you make sure it's on the calendar and you stick to the time that you set for your exercise. It's the same with improving pronunciation and speaking skills. Decide on what time you're going to be able to allocate to improving your pronunciation and make sure that you've penciled it into your calendar or created a digital calendar event. And once you've penciled it in, show up for it. Step number 4, consistency. This one is very important. You have to make sure that you are consistent. We can all get really good at something if we do it consistently. Choose any skill you'd like. If you show up and you put in the time and the effort and you do it day in and day out, you're gonna get good at that skill. So consistency is the name of the game. Show up and keep showing up. All right, nice work. So in this lesson, we discussed how to improve English pronunciation. It starts with figuring out how you use English or how you hope to be using English in the future. We talked about the power of goal setting and how you can create a schedule that works for you. And finally, you learned about how motivation is not a shoo-in for goal setting. Rather, keeping it consistent and showing up for yourself is what matters more. As with anything, improving a new skill or learning something new takes time. But if you have the time and the patience, you'll achieve those goals before you even know it. All right, advanced English learners, thank you so much for joining me for this lesson. If you're watching the lesson here on YouTube, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the podcast version of this lesson and you love our podcast, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review. That really helps us out. We really appreciate it. And turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. The full transcript of this lesson can be found on our blog, so be sure to check out advancedenglish.co/blog. And while you're there, feel free to sign up for our free newsletter so that you get lessons delivered to your inbox each and every week. See you in the next advanced English lesson where we're going to continue advancing your English together. Until then, keep up the awesome work, and I will see you very soon.